The first contact and unforeseen resolve. The universe had always been a quiet, ever-expanding sea of stars. For centuries, the galactic empires had thrived, building alliances, sharing technologies, and ensuring peace through diplomacy, as it was all they had known. The planets under their rule had been settled into a careful order. The higher civilizations had found their rhythm, one that balanced power, peace, and control. The galaxy was, for all intents and purposes, peaceful. That is, until humanity arrived. Earth, a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the Milky Way, had long been a subject of interest to the galactic powers. Its people had long since been studying the stars, reaching out to understand the cosmos that lay beyond their world. But they were still new to the idea of spacefaring, still children in the eyes of the galaxy. Their recent discovery of warp technology caught the attention of the Galactic Assembly, a governing body composed of the most advanced species in the universe. For millennia, the Assembly had maintained an unspoken rule: no species shall disturb the delicate balance of galactic peace. But when humanity unlocked the secret of faster-than-light travel, they were no longer a curiosity. They were a new force, one that could either bring untold advancements or shatter the existing order of the galaxy. The Council of Elders, composed of representatives from the most ancient and powerful species in the galaxy, deliberated on the matter for years. They had watched Earth's history unfold: wars, revolutions, and cycles of violence that seemed unending. The human race, unlike any species they had ever encountered, was defined not by their peace but by their ability to fight, adapt, and survive. They had built entire civilizations from the ruins of their own mistakes, showing an unwavering capacity for innovation and growth, even in the most dire of circumstances. The question the Council debated was not whether humanity would join the galactic fold, but whether their entry would disrupt the peace they had all fought so long to protect. Then came the war. It didn't begin with humanity seeking conflict. The galaxy, with all its shining empires and delicate treaties, was a volatile place. Struggling factions and pirate groups, many of whom were once under the rule of the Assembly, had begun to stir restlessly. A colony on the far outskirts of the galaxy, Green Haven, became the epicenter of an uprising. Pirates, former exiles who had gained substantial military strength, began raiding peaceful planets for resources. The Assembly, hesitant to involve themselves in the mess of small-scale skirmishes, was caught off guard when the pirates turned on the well-established colonies. And then, they did the unthinkable. The pirates targeted a mining colony on Green Haven, a planet where humanity had recently settled. Earth had begun establishing colonies on several planets, and Green Haven had been one of the first to see significant human migration. A group of pirates, heavily armed, and with military-grade technology, invaded the peaceful settlement. They slaughtered civilians without a second thought, looted essential supplies, and terrorized the inhabitants. The call for help went out across the galaxy, but no one came. The Galactic Assembly, disinterested in getting involved in the conflict, saw it as a matter for local authorities. But humanity didn't stand idly by. No, humans didn't wait for the Assembly's approval to protect what was theirs. James Miller was one of those humans. A former soldier-turned-miner, James had seen the worst of humanity's capabilities. He had been through more battles than most of the galaxy's seasoned warriors, and his time in Earth's military had taught him one crucial lesson: protect the innocent. It didn't matter who or what the enemy was. When you saw people being hurt, you didn't hesitate, you acted. James was stationed on Green Haven, working as a mining foreman when the attack began. At first, he wasn't supposed to get involved. The local security was supposed to handle the situation, and the Assembly had agreed to send reinforcements. But as the days passed and the violence escalated, James couldn't sit idly by. He grabbed whatever tools he could, a pickaxe, a drilling laser, and set off to help. What happened next would make his name known across the galaxy. Using nothing but his mining tools, James fought back against the well-armed pirates. In the planet's harsh, twice-normal gravity, he battled them, knocking down doors, tearing through barricades, and using his knowledge of the terrain to outsmart the attackers. He fought through pain, with broken ribs and a punctured lung, never stopping. His humanity, his drive to protect, pushed him forward in the face of insurmountable odds. When the pirates fell, the settlement was saved, but the galaxy had just seen something it wasn't prepared for. James didn't fight like the rest of the universe's species. He fought with a reckless determination, an almost primal intensity. His strength wasn't just physical, it was rooted in his unrelenting will to survive and protect. And it frightened them. The Galactic Assembly had underestimated humanity, and now they feared the consequences. In a sterile, vast courtroom, James was summoned before the tribunal, a gathering of the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their voices filled the chamber, their eyes constantly scanning him as if he were some strange anomaly. The accusations against him were clear: excessive violence, disturbing galactic peace, and causing chaos in an otherwise well-maintained region of space. The accusations seemed simple, but James wasn't concerned with their formalities. He knew he had acted to protect his people, and he wasn't about to apologize for it. The tribunal was silent as they processed the footage from Greenhaven. The destruction of the pirates, the fearless human standing in front of them. His courage and resilience had disrupted the delicate peace they had worked so hard to maintain. And now, the question that hung in the air was not about his guilt, but what to do about it. Humans are a threat, one judge declared. But James Miller didn't see it that way. We are not a threat, he responded firmly. We are protectors. As the debate raged on in the courtroom, James was certain of one thing: his race was ready for war. Whether they were prepared for the consequences, only time would tell. The war that had already begun was not one that would be won by technology, political maneuvering, or sheer numbers. It would be a war fought on resilience, courage, and the human will to protect. And humanity was ready. The exile and humanity's determination. The tribunal's decision had been swift. James Miller was sentenced to exile on Nexus 99, a planet so hostile that no one had ever survived there for long. It was not a punishment, it was a death sentence. The planet had been abandoned centuries ago by every species that had dared to set foot on its surface. The judges, their silver forms shimmering in the harsh light of the chamber, seemed confident that James would meet his end there, far from the reach of his beloved Earth and its people. The images of Nexus 99 burned in his mind, a world covered in purple clouds, towering mountain ranges hidden beneath an impenetrable atmosphere, and oceans of black liquid churning beneath the violent winds. Massive, carnivorous plants, predators far larger than anything humanity had encountered, and storms that could shred through the toughest armor. They were just a few of the dangers that awaited him. The idea of surviving on such a world seemed absurd. But for James, it was just another challenge. "You are dismissed," the chief judge's voice boomed across the chamber, cutting through the murmur of the watching crowd. James stood tall, his hands still bound by chains, and as he made his way to the transport bay, he couldn't shake the strange sense of calm that had settled over him. The thought of dying on an alien world didn't terrify him. What terrified him was what it meant for his people. If the galaxy saw humanity as a threat, then Earth would never know peace. He had to prove them wrong. Once inside the transport vessel, a cold metallic room with no windows, James was seated in a small harness. He was to be shipped off to Nexus 99 without any fanfare. The ship's eye, a neutral voice devoid of emotion, confirmed the details of his transport. No one in the galaxy cared about the fate of one human. To the assembly, James was merely a lesson, a way to show the galaxy what happens when one species dared to break the peace. But deep inside, James was already making plans. He wasn't just going to survive Nexus 99. He was going to conquer it. As the transport ship left the galactic station, James looked out at the endless sea of stars. The cold vacuum of space stretched out before him, a blank canvas. The stars, like distant diamonds, offered no comfort, but they reminded him of something much more important: Earth, his home. He had been sent to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, but Earth had always been a place of resilience. No matter how dark the times, humanity had always found a way to overcome. The journey to Nexus 99 was long and uneventful, and as the ship descended through the atmosphere of the hostile world, James couldn't help but wonder what awaited him. The planet's surface was a hellish landscape, scarred by centuries of violent storms and unpredictable terrain. It was everything the Tribunal had promised: an inhospitable, unforgiving world. But James was no stranger to adversity. He had survived Earth's harshest environments. If humanity could thrive on a planet where storms could level cities and earthquakes could split the land in half, then Nexus 99 was just another challenge waiting to be conquered. As the ship's landing gear made contact with the surface, James prepared himself for what lay ahead. He was provided with minimal survival gear, a shelter kit, 1 month's worth of standard rations, and a basic toolset. The Az's voice echoed once more, a final reminder of his fate. Upon disembarkation, you are free to begin your survival process. You will be monitored remotely by drones. Good luck. The ship's hatch opened, and James stepped out onto the rocky, alien surface. The air was thick with toxic elements, making every breath feel like a battle. He pulled the survival mask over his face, his mind already working through the next steps. His muscles ached from the confinement of the ship, but there was no time to rest. He needed to find shelter, resources, and the will to survive. He had no choice but to keep moving. For the first few hours, the landscape was unyielding. The ground was uneven, covered in jagged rocks that threatened to twist his ankle at every step. The air itself was a challenge. Every breath burned his lungs. Yet, despite the harsh conditions, James found a strange sense of purpose. He had faced worse on Earth, surviving the blistering heat of desert warfare, battling the suffocating humidity of jungle terrain. This was nothing. As he made his way across the barren landscape, the first signs of life appeared. Carnivorous plants with spiny tendrils whipped in the wind, their bioluminescent colors flashing in the eerie twilight. Massive, lumbering creatures with scales thick as armor stalked the horizon. Their glowing eyes watched him from a distance, but they didn't approach. James wasn't sure whether they were predators or just curious. But either way, he wasn't here to fight them. Not yet. He reached the shelter he had located on the map, a makeshift structure built by the last group of settlers who had attempted to establish a presence on Nexus 99. It was small, but it would be enough for the night. James entered cautiously, making sure to secure the entrance before taking off his helmet. He exhaled deeply, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. But as he surveyed his surroundings, his mind began to focus again. This was what he was made for. Humans, despite all their flaws, were a species of survivors. They adapted, they innovated, and no matter how many challenges came their way, they never gave up. This was the mentality that had pushed humanity to the stars, and this was what would keep him alive here. The night on Nexus 99 was colder than anything he had experienced on Earth. The winds howled, and the bioluminescent plants flickered outside, casting strange shadows on the walls of his shelter. Inside, James set up the fire, using a small flare gun from his kit to spark the dry kindling. As the flames began to crackle, James allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He had been exiled, cast out from the galaxy's delicate peace, but in that moment, he understood something important. Peace was not what made humanity strong. It was the struggle, the adversity that forged them into something greater. He stared into the fire, and the reality of the situation set in. His survival was only the first step, but the greater challenge lay in proving the galaxy wrong. Humanity was not a threat, but a protector. And it would take more than just one man on one hostile world to prove it. With a steady resolve, James stood and set to work. He was going to make it through this, and when he did, the galaxy would know one thing: Humanity wasn't just here to stay. They were here to change everything. The struggles of survival. The cold, alien winds howled outside James' small shelter, carrying with them the scent of the strange, toxic atmosphere. Despite the shelter's small size and rudimentary design, it offered a small semblance of safety, far from the dangers lurking in the open. Nexus 99 was unforgiving, and even the smallest mistake could cost him his life. But there was no room for fear. There was only the relentless drive to survive. James woke early the next morning, the faint light of the distant star filtering through the cracks in his shelter's walls. The air was thick with a humidity that made the inside of his suit feel like a sauna. He pushed through the discomfort, rolling up his mat and standing to stretch his stiff muscles. The shelter had given him some rest, but it was clear to him that no matter how many hours he slept, the environment outside would always be his biggest challenge. His eyes scanned the map he had been given, which, even in its incomplete state, showed the location of several critical resources: water, plant life, and any remnants of past explorers. He needed all the information he could get. Every resource was a lifeline, a small advantage in a world designed for survival of the fittest. Before stepping outside, James equipped himself with the basic tools in his kit: a hunting knife, a flare gun, and the emergency rations. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. The first challenge was simple: find a water source. He could survive without food for weeks, but without water, he wouldn't last more than a few days. The harsh sunlight beat down on the surface as he made his way toward the river marked on the map. The ground was dry and cracked, and the air was still stifling. The journey was slow, every step an effort, but James was accustomed to this kind of endurance. Earth had prepared him for hard conditions, but Nexus 99's brutality was something different. The atmosphere here made each breath feel like he was inhaling sand, and the weight of the air pressed down on his chest with a force he had never known. As he reached the river, the sight before him took his breath away. A large, jagged trench in the earth carved a winding path through the rocky landscape. It was unlike any water source James had seen before. The water that ran through the trench wasn't clear. It shimmered with a strange, iridescent glow, as if it was alive. James knelt down cautiously and touched the water with the back of his gloved hand. To his surprise, it wasn't toxic, but it was a far cry from the clean, clear streams of earth. His map showed the nearest town was another few days' trek away, but that was a far-off goal for now. James needed to learn how to survive here, and it had to start with water. He filled his canteen, then stood up, scanning the area for any potential threats. The strange plants had already started to sway in the breeze, their twisted forms vibrating as if sensing his presence. He was aware of the larger, more dangerous creatures that roamed these lands, but for now, they remained distant. For the next few days, James pushed himself harder than ever before. He trekked across the barren landscape, searching for any sign of life, any sign that others had survived here before him. The burning heat of Nexus 99 drained his energy, and the brutal environment seemed determined to keep him from succeeding. But he did not stop. James knew that giving in to fear or exhaustion was not an option. It wasn't just his survival at stake. It was a matter of proving humanity's resilience, that Earth could stand against anything the universe threw at them. The physical strain was immense. Every night, James would return to his shelter, his body aching with exhaustion. He would sleep for a few hours, then begin the next day with the same relentless determination. The days blurred together as he grew accustomed to his harsh new reality. He had built a routine, and that routine was his anchor. One day, while exploring the outer edges of the rocky landscape, James encountered something unexpected. A strange, large creature appeared from behind a cluster of bioluminescent plants. Its movements were graceful yet powerful, and its eyes locked onto James with an intelligence he hadn't expected from an alien creature. It wasn't aggressive, but it was curious, observing him from a distance. The creature had the body of a large quadruped, with scales that shimmered like polished gemstones. Its spiny back undulated as it moved, and the air around it seemed to ripple with energy. James stood motionless, not wanting to provoke it. He knew this was a rare opportunity, a chance to learn more about the wildlife on Nexus 99. For a long while, James observed the creature, noting its movements, its behavior. He couldn't shake the feeling that, in some strange way, the creature was sizing him up as much as he was studying it. There was something almost familiar about its gaze. In that moment, James realized how much Earth had shaped his thinking, how much he had come to rely on his instincts, his creativity, and his ability to adapt. As the creature slowly backed away, its shimmering body fading into the distance, James felt a flicker of hope. If the creatures of Nexus 99 could survive here, so could he. The sheer presence of the creature reminded him of Earth's wildlife, how life found a way in even the harshest environments. It was a lesson that humanity had learned long ago, and it was one James was determined to apply here. Days turned into weeks as James continued to explore, and though he never encountered the creature again, he began to piece together the planet's mysteries. The iridescent water, the glowing plants, and the creatures that thrived in such a hostile environment. They all represented the same thing: survival. Nexus 99 was not a death sentence. It was a crucible, a place where only the strongest could endure, and James Miller had every intention of proving that humanity belonged in that category. But Nexus 99 wasn't just a planet to be conquered, it was a test. Every day brought a new challenge. Every moment forced him to adapt. The environment didn't care who he was or where he came from. To Nexus 99, he was just another creature trying to survive. James didn't need to prove anything to the Tribunal or the galaxy. He only needed to prove it to himself. As he sat by the fire one night, staring up at the starry sky, he made a promise. No matter how long it took, no matter how many obstacles lay ahead, he would survive. Earth would survive. And one day, humanity would stand tall, not as a threat, but as a beacon of hope and resilience in the vast, unknown galaxy. The days of fear were over. Now, it was time for humanity's greatest strength to shine.